When it comes to portraits and fashion, one of the biggest concerns that I see, whether you're shooting natural light or studio, is actually the skin tones. For example, this image donated to us by Cat Ford-Coartes is such a remarkable photograph that I thought it was great to use. And this is the after result where you can see all the skins looking really nice and clean. Let me go ahead and show you what it looks like before the gradient map's applied. You can see here, let's zoom in for a second, that there's a different issues happening across the skin tone range. For example, saturation issues, where the skin over here looks really desaturated, almost like there's no blood flow happening. And that is pretty common depending on what area of the body you're looking at. And also, you'll notice over here on the shoulders, there's some orange and red happening, and there's another color happening here on the collarbone, and so forth and so on. So you can actually use Unify to fix that. And you'll notice if I turn the after on again, you'll see that everything is more harmonious and pleasant to look at. Here's how we're going to do it. The first thing that we have to do is first identify a specific color range that we like on the skin. And the best part about it is, I think, for me personally, I really enjoy seeing these neutral tones here, for example, like on the forehead, or maybe like on the neck here is really nice, or maybe like on the shoulder here. Might be a little bit too warm, but that could also work. No matter what that selection looks like, I would highly recommend picking something that doesn't have a lot of makeup in it. That way you get a really nice clean selection. Then what we'll actually do here, let me go ahead and delete this for a second since we don't need that. I'm going to click my lasso tool, and this lasso tool helps me select the range of tones that I want to use. I'm going to go ahead and actually use tones on the forehead here because I think they're representative of what I want to see across the whole range of skin. Then I'm just going to go ahead and make sure, number one, that these settings here are going to be mask on. So it's going to create a black mask for us. And then I'm going to use the color blend mode, which is labeled as C. And I'll go ahead and explain that in a minute. The other thing that we want to do is keep these, whatever it is at the moment, because we're going to change that once it is applied. I'm going to hit create. And then suddenly it automatically selects these skin tones here on your gradient map. And if you don't have this open, you simply need to just double click on this, and then it should pop up under properties somewhere in your window. Or if you don't see, go to window and properties. Now you'll notice that the tones here kind of reflect the ones that we picked. And we want to keep our smoothness, which is going to be the selection or the number of colors that it selects, or how specific the tones are at around 50. If I go to like 0, you'll see there's all kinds of different variations of tones it selects. And if you're not familiar with this, I would highly recommend just keeping it to 50. And if you haven't used the Infinite Unify panel, definitely go to infinite-tools.com, and there you can select Infinite Unify and see the general video that we have that goes over all these settings and then some. But right now I'm just going to tell you which ones to pick. Then I'm going to use 5 on the gradient map, and what this basically means is it selects a number of points on the gradient map, or you can use 3. It doesn't really matter too much in this example since it's quite a soft image with nice gradual transitions. So I'll keep 5 or 3, but in this instance, 5 should be fine. And I'm not going to worry about this for the moment. That's only for minor selections. Then what I will do is I'm going to come over here to my black mask, make sure that is selected. Click on my standard regular brush. Then under opacity, I'll go ahead and keep it to 50. And I can simply select the selection tool here and then hit 5 on the keyboard. It'll get me to 50 as well. Now what I'll go ahead and do is, with those parameters set, I'll switch over to my brush tool. I'll keep my flow around 10%, opacity at 100, and my brush tool hardness to 0. And I think once that's done, I'm simply going to go ahead and start brushing. And as you see, as I go ahead and start brushing, you'll notice that these areas that were kind of undersaturated get evened out, and those areas that might be too red get evened out, and so forth and so on. And the reason for that is, A, we picked the right set of colors that we want to use to represent the rest of the skin tone range, which is really nice. Then I'm going to go ahead and use the rest of the arm as well, and maybe even some of the hands, because honestly, you might not even know where some of these skin tones need some help and finessing. The other thing that I like to do is, once kind of I do this little general mask, it doesn't even have to be precise, and you'll see what I mean by actually selecting the mask here. You can tell it's not 100% precise, and that's okay. It allows you to get where you're wanting to go without actually being 100% perfect, and that's what I like. I don't like being 100% perfect if I don't have to be. Now I'm going to turn this on and off, and you'll see a big difference. The reason why I left it at 50 is if you do want to go up higher, you can. You're more than welcome to do so, and it actually might do really well in most cases. But what I like to do is leave it to a lower opacity because I like to keep some of the natural nuances coming through, the nuances of color and variation, because humans are not 100% perfect. And, depending on the situation, you really have to kind of eyeball it. But for me, I think 50 or 75, somewhere around that range seems to be a really nice, pleasing number. I do recommend once you do have that set, kind of play around with the opacity and see how that goes. And then also if you want, now here's a chance to kind of adjust the hue. We don't want to adjust the hue because what happens is if you go to the left, it becomes a little bit more red. If you go to the right, it becomes a little bit more yellow. And so in this instance, keeping it to 0 was pretty perfect. And here is a before and here's an after. And just like that, you kind of have a really good idea of what it kind of looks like in a quick selection process. And as I mentioned, all you really have to do is decide which kind of skin tones to pick with your lasso tool and then hit create, making sure that these little parameters are set for you, and then you're good to go. Again, if you want to see the full video on how to use all these tools and options, go to infinite-tools.com or simply click on the description in this video and you can see all the information about it. I'm excited to see what you create. I think this is going to be something that can be used for so many different things. And on the website, you might also see tons of other videos that go over not just portraits and fashion, all kinds of things from newborns to maternity and every other genre that you can think of. And again, it's also not just used for skin, but all kinds of things from products to landscapes to anything you can think of.